I want to ask two more questions here to focus. One is, I'm interested in the fact that we have had now 10 years or so in which no gatekeeping, all sorts of medical experimentation, major social media contagion, a massive increase in trans identification among the young, the growing prevalence online that being trans means that you are subject to a quote-unquote genocide now, that they're all about to kill you. If you dip into the social media of some of these people, it is truly extraordinary, the level of hysteria, violence, and death that is portrayed. Are we likely to see, further outbreaks of violence and disruption? Not, again, because actual transsexual people who used to know them have suddenly decided to become psychotic, but because we've created a population of young people completely fucked up about their sex and gender, who are now being told that they're being existentially challenged and murdered, genocided, that inevitably within that context and that rhetoric, a few people are going to do something truly dumb.
The Democratic Party made impossible promises that it cannot keep to a large population of kids. The Democratic Party, in concert with the legal and medical and cultural establishments of the Western world, it said that we are going to make it so that this little trans-affirming community that you have, where everybody, right, will encompass the whole world, and we're going to do it by force if necessary, and force is necessary. Right. And now you have members of the Democratic Party peeling off, just verbally, Newsom, Rahm Emanuel was sort of asked point blank, can a man become a woman? And he said no. Right. Like, did any of these people that were imposing all of this law and policy based upon this gender mysticism that we spoke about, did any of them actually believe it at the time? They did not believe it. Right. But they thought maybe that it'll all just be fine. It would not result in third grade girls having to beseech their school board for a little bit of safety and protection. But it did turn out to be that way, and it's going to continue to, it's only going to become more that way throughout the country. We have girls volleyball teams and other sports teams throughout California, right, that are boycotting games, right, rather than play against boys. And this is something that Helen Joyce predicted back in 2019. She said that when you actually see what this is like in practice, as it necessarily will have to be, right, it's too onerous a demand to make on the whole public, right? It's not properly scaled to what we as a society can impose on ourselves without what amounts to totalitarian coercion. And totalitarian because, the distinction, Jean Kirkpatrick's distinction between authoritarian and totalitarian, right? Like Donald Trump is an authoritarian. He just wants you to buy his crypto coin and obey him. And right. A totalitarian wants to change reality, wants to change your beliefs. And the totalitarian has to make it so that we all believe these things that are not true and behave reflexively as if they were. They want to make it so that when we see the naked man loitering in the girls' room, right, we are not alarmed. We are not moved to speak to the front desk and be perturbed when the front desk tells us, no, he identifies as a woman. He's a woman. He has a right to be here. Can that happen at scale? The thing is that the transgender population is very small, so not many people have had experiences like this. But as the population scales up on the wings of promises that were made to them by the Democratic Party that the party is already beginning to back away from, promises of society-wide coercion, promises of a kind of holy war against fascist, white, cis-hetero patriarchy supremacy, right? That they will fight to subdue, right, all those TERFs and conservatives and Christian evangelicals and Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk and all these animals that, so people surged onto Blue Sky after Charlie Kirk was killed to name the next victim or the next target, right? And they do Trump next, do Matt Walsh next, right? Do J.K. Rowling next. And of course, Rowling is at the very core of this, right? Because the sort of the sense of the destiny that the movement had in 2018, 2019, a new form of rule had emerged when corporations shut down the North Carolina state legislature. And since then, hundreds of quote unquote anti-trans bills sort of, about sports and about transing children have passed throughout red America, right? Like half of the United States have bans on gender medicalization. Why weren't there capital strikes against all of those states? What's so different about now and 10 years ago, where it was a great moral imperative for the NBA to pull the All-Star game from North Carolina, and it's okay for half the states to ban child medicalization? Because everybody's bluff was pulled, and we had to face the fact that Megyn Kelly forced Rahm Emanuel into and said, do you think a man can become a woman? And the answer was no. And it was the same for all of those corporate boards. Are we going to go to the mattresses for this? And the answer is no. And the recognition that answer is no is, to people that are told that there's a genocide going on, is an invitation for their own action. And so the analogy that I have for this is that there was a sequence of events that happened after the millenarian hopes of the civil rights movement turned into the violence of the Weather Underground and the Black Liberation Army, and eventually reaching its apotheosis at Jonestown, right? And so I tweeted months ago, even before, about the Zizians. The Zizians is a sort of transgender AI murder cult, right? Like they've murdered several people. They're led by a charismatic trans-identified male leader, and several of them are trans-identified. They have various reasons for being violent that do or don't have to do with transgenderism per se, right? But like I said, we're gonna repeat that history. We're gonna have a transgender man instant family. We're gonna have a transgender Jonestown, and Jonestown doesn't mean that they're gonna all move to one place and turn into a suicide cult. But it does mean that these kind of die-ins that have been going on for the last 3 years, ever since the first sort of bill, they will happen at some larger scale.
My concern is
impossible promises that can never be true were made to them, and the failure of those promises, we'll see a repeat of the failure of the millenarian hopes of the hippies and the radicals of the 60s and 70s. There's going to be a violent aftermath. It's already baked into the cake, in my view.